You know, some of Hollywood's biggest franchises, they're in real trouble, and a pretty wild solution is being floated for how to save them. The whole idea is that one single actor's star power can actually rescue an entire cinematic universe. But does this high-stakes bet really make any sense? Let's break it down.
I mean, that really is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? We're talking about absolute cultural juggernauts like Star Wars and Marvel, and right now, they're in a surprisingly shaky position. And the narrative that's being pushed is that the hopes of these entire worlds, well, they can rest on the shoulders of just one star.
Okay, so let's just dive right into this. This is the core idea we're going to explore today. There's this powerful narrative that's popped up, especially in entertainment media, that says the solution to all of Star Wars' problems isn't the story, it's not the direction, it's just getting more of one actor, Pedro Pascal.
So, first up, let's unpack what this proposed solution actually looks like. We're going to dig into the argument being put out there, which really centers on a huge shift in how one of Star Wars' most popular modern characters is presented to us.
So the argument pretty much goes like this. The actor, Pedro Pascal, has become a bigger star than the character he plays, the Mandalorian. The idea is that his face, his celebrity, that whole peepaw energy thing people talk about, that's the real draw now. So, to save Star Wars, what you need is less helmet and more of the man himself, right up front and center. It's basically a huge bet on star power over character mystique.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. How does that whole narrative stack up against the cold, hard data from the box office? I mean, if an actor's star power is really the key, you'd expect that to translate into ticket sales, right? Well, let's take a look at the numbers for his most recent films.
The main counter-argument to this whole idea is found right there in the box office numbers. A closer look at the actor's big starring roles from the 2025 film season, well, it paints a picture that really challenges the idea of him being a guaranteed box office magnet. Let's break down the performance of 3 of his major films.
First up, we've got the film The Materialists. Its worldwide gross came in at $18 million. Now, look, for a smaller indie film, that might be totally fine. But when we're talking about an actor who is supposedly able to carry a billion-dollar franchise on his back, $18 million barely even makes a dent. It certainly doesn't scream franchise-saving power.
And then there's Eddington, which did even worse. Get this, it pulled in just $12.7 million worldwide. For a major movie with a supposed A-lister in the lead, a number like that isn't just a letdown. It's what the industry calls a mega flop. That's a huge financial failure, and it raises some serious questions about an actor's ability to actually open a film.
And now for the big one, Marvel's Fantastic Four. This was supposed to be a massive, cornerstone film for the MCU. It pulled in about $522 million worldwide, and while that sounds like a ton of money, the movie reportedly needed to make somewhere between $650 and $700 million just to break even. For a movie meant to launch a whole new era, failing to even turn a profit, that's a gigantic problem.
So when you lay it all out like this, the 2025 record is pretty clear. One movie that was not a hit, one that was a certified mega flop, and a massive superhero blockbuster that was labeled an utter failure. The data, the numbers, they just don't seem to back up the theory that this actor is a reliable solo box office draw.
So that brings us to the next big point, which argues that this whole media focus on the actor totally misunderstands why the character of the Mandalorian got so popular to begin with. Was it really about the famous face under the helmet? Or was it all about the helmet itself? Here you can see the two arguments right next to each other. On one side, you have the media narrative that insists the big draw is the actor's celebrity. But the counter-argument is that the appeal was always the character, that mysterious, helmeted warrior. The whole point was that he was a symbol. He represented something, an archetype. And taking off that mask to reveal the celebrity underneath, well, that risks shattering the entire illusion.
This quote just drives the point right home. For decades, Boba Fett was one of the most popular characters in all of Star Wars, and he had barely any screen time, and we never saw his face. Why? Simple. He just looked cool. The design and the mystery were everything. The argument here is that The Mandalorian tapped into that exact same lightning in a bottle. The appeal was the armor, the helmet, the code. It was all rooted in the aesthetic and the archetype, not in celebrity. But the argument doesn't just stop at box office numbers. It expands to look at what are described as potential brand risks. This kind of shifts the focus away from what happens on screen to the actor's public persona off screen and asks whether that persona really aligns with the brands he's supposed to be representing.
So the crucial point here is that these alleged off-screen factors could create some major challenges for an actor who is being positioned as the face of family-friendly brands like Disney. The claims that are a part of this critique include things like alienating parts of the audience with public statements, creating PR headaches, and being linked to that string of high-profile box office flops we just talked about. It all feeds into the argument that he might not be the safe bet that some in the media are suggesting.
Okay, so let's tie all of these points together now into a much larger warning about the future of the film industry. Because this isn't really just about one actor or one movie. It's about the entire strategy Hollywood is choosing to use at a really critical time.
And here's the ultimate concern, right? Both Star Wars and Marvel are in what you'd call a must-win situation. After years of audiences kind of drifting away and projects that have underperformed, they absolutely need guaranteed hits. So by placing this massive bet on a single actor whose drawing power seems to be contradicted by the data, the argument is that Hollywood isn't just risking one movie, it's risking the future of its biggest, most important franchises. A failure here could have devastating consequences across the whole industry.
You know, this really gets at a bigger issue: franchise fatigue. It's totally possible that the real disease that's plaguing these cinematic universes isn't a lack of a certain star, but just general exhaustion with the whole formula. Audiences might just be tired of the endless stream of interconnected stuff. And if that's the case, focusing on one actor isn't a cure at all. It's just treating a symptom while completely ignoring the real problem.
And so we end with this really provocative question. At a time when just the habit of going to the movies is on the decline, these huge mega franchises have been the main pillars holding the whole industry up. If they start to falter, if this whole strategy fails to get audiences excited again, what comes next? What, if anything, can possibly fill that void? It's a question, really, about the very future of going to the movies itself.